And welcome everybody to Off Day with Ballpark Nation. It's a fun, exciting time, Andy, to be an American. I have my American flag Astros hat on for those listening. But first and foremost, those of you watching might notice that my name's a little different today. Lulu, my granddaughter, who's big fan of the show, doesn't like that I go by Jim, so now it says Pops, just for her, Andy. Because
can she read?
I think she's starting to be able to read, and that also might be that I also said James Christopher, but I don't know. What you'll find when you reach this stage in life is that when your granddaughter tells you to do something, and you do it.
No, I get it. I'm just, it's performative if she can't actually read. And you've gone mute. We're having technical difficulties right now while Jim is adjusting his unit. And for those of you who are just
Family
listening,
show.
And for those of you just listening, he didn't even use his hands to adjust his unit. So
I did. I used my own mouth, just like Christy Gnome's husband. All of a sudden, Lulu, you're listening to, Mom, what's that mean? But no, she had basically made a comment. Right. She made a comment after her birthday shout out that she didn't really like the fact that I don't go by Pops. So You know what? Here we are. But lots of things have been leaving the atmosphere that are associated with the city of Houston. Andy, we're going to begin though with the Artemis 2. And it's funny because there's probably three categories of people who are concerned with space. Maybe four. There are people who don't care, people who think it's a waste of money, people that are really smart and nerdy who love it, and people like me who are not smart. I'm not nerdy, but I still love the idea of it. I think being a Houston kid's part of it. We were at NASA right after Artemis 2 was launched, so that was very cool. Obviously, you and I remember Challenger. That's probably our Kennedy moment, at least for me it is. Overall, though, man, like, what did you take from the launch? How invested do you get in this stuff?
In your three categories, where do the Sith fall?
A category of you. Well, there can only be two of you, Andy. So that eliminates the "Am I a nerd?" question, by the way, doesn't it?
Okay, great.
We're off.
That was not a test at all. It should be special, and it is very hard right now to. And I'll say this: I know we have a slight disagreement on this based on our life experiences. To root for America. And I think it's important for Americans to realize that rooting for America doesn't have anything to do with rooting for your government.
Doesn't mean rooting for Donald Trump.
Because they are two separate entities. Yeah. And they evidently go on, one of those entities goes on 20-minute rants that appear to be just reading Truth Social posts now. The other one is an entity who's trying to actually accomplish things, no matter how much that other entity throws barriers in their way. And for all of you who I saw this morning trying to give Donald Trump credit for the Artemis launch, this was something that was decided on 5 years ago. Guess who was president 5 years ago?
Right. Well, yeah, and to be, if we want to tell the full story, which that's always something we strive to do, you can thank the Republican majority Senate and House for saving it when Trump tried to cancel it when he was president, when he was first sworn in. He tried to shut Artemis down, and it was actually a bipartisan.
You've gone mute again. Stop touching your unit.
I'll stop touching it. No, but it was a bipartisan thing to override his cancellation. He doesn't understand space, so therefore he doesn't think it should be a thing.
Yeah. But, back to your original question, I think that Americans in general should be proud of the fact that we got another space mission launched and we're going back to the moon, because regardless of your feelings about how money should be spent and where things could be allocated better, there are a number of scientific discoveries that came from the space program that we apply to our everyday lives, including life-saving medicines, cancer research, the gamut of all the things that the progressive side of the world thinks we should be doing. If you are a Houston kid, the space program is always a touch more, and I would guess Florida kids around Cape Canaveral and probably Huntsville in Alabama also have a special kind of feeling when it comes to the space program, because you grew up with this in your backyard. A lot of us knew people who worked at NASA, who were involved in the space program. I know some people, indirectly who grew up with astronauts' kids in the Clear Lake area. So it's a little bit different. And I think that's why Challenger hit a little bit harder for us in Houston. I think that's why Artemis launching and us taking new steps in the space program means just a little bit more if you're from the Houston area.
Our friend H-Town Wheelhouse is actually friends with Victor Glover, who is the pilot of Artemis 2. And Pete Hegseth, if you're listening, cover your ears. He is the first black man to pilot around the moon. Also, I guess the female astronaut will be the first female to go the deepest into space, which there's a Jackie Gleason reference there about To the Moon and Alice, but you and I are old. We are probably not. We are Michael J. Fox going, oh, I saw this in a rerun. So we don't really know the Honeymooners, but that reference.
And that stuff reminds me of, we bring up the Challenger and we're 20, God, so many years removed away. I don't want to do the math.
You don't, because it's more than 20.
I know it's 40, but that's just shush. Just shush. But you bring up Glover, and that reminds me of Ron McNair. And you want to talk about Houston stuff, and I know this is a little non sequitur, but Ron McNair was an African American astronaut who died on the Challenger. He was also a saxophone player, and if you're of a certain Houston vintage, that would remind you of the Rendezvous Houston concert that was held in downtown with French performance artist Jean-Michel Jarre, and this was a huge deal, and all of downtown was shut off. But they featured Ron McNair's saxophone playing tape of it in his recording. And even a city that can get as disaffected as Houston about certain things, it was kind of a moment where the whole city came together during that. As silly as it is for a music concert to bring people together, it was a really interesting time when all that happened. But I'm real proud of the space program, real proud of NASA. Because what they do is by no means easy, and our current administration seems to want to make it harder by pulling funds at the last minute, reallocating funds at the last minute. And there were a number of times that this mission could have not gone successfully. And it is down to the level of all the toilets have to work on the spaceship for the launch to go. It's not, we can leave some things off and still got
sure.
Everything has to go perfectly for these things to go off, and it did. And so that should be something as Americans that we can be proud of our country for and cheer for.
I think for many, many reasons. You named all the logistical things. I mean, you're not even talking. You don't even talk about just medical stuff, but like our microwave was born from the space program. Some of our internet technology, but I also think part of what helps with the malaise of whenever we fall into these valleys of malaise in American history, and you saw it in the 60s and you saw it in the 70s,
the 1890s.
We are an aspirational people. We want, it is our nature to go, and our whole country was founded on people that basically set sail into not knowing where they were going and ending up here. And it is we are explorers by culture. We are explorers by nature. And I think when we can get behind a common cause like something like this, beyond the fact that this isn't just about going back to the moon, but we're talking about eventually building something that could take us to Mars, looking at the environmental struggles of what we're dealing with. And I hate my right-wing friends. Yes, I'm sorry. Global warming is a thing, or climate change is a thing. We don't know what level of benefit or what solutions we're going to find to help fix our planet here through the actions of learning how to navigate the environment both on the moon and on Mars. So there's many, many things to come out of this. And for those of you complaining about the money, it is an infinitesimal part of our budget. We can afford it.
We can afford lots of things.
Boom. We can. Now, one of my favorite segues, though, is a couple of years ago. God, man, it must have been 5 years ago now, Andy, when we were celebrating, I guess it was the 50th anniversary of Apollo. When the Astros had the really cool hats, and they, for that weekend, you walked into the team store and they didn't have the game playing. They had the Apollo radio calls happening, which was super, super cool. But the Astros put some balls into orbit in the last 5 games. We haven't seen since our last show, the Astros have gone 5-1. And you and I are going to be healthily skeptical. The players that are hitting the ball out of the ballpark are ones we would expect. And so it does, I guess, give you an indication of if this team stays healthy, this is what they are capable of. And especially since Minute Maid or Dyken Park has become a notoriously difficult ballpark to hit in. But then when you go up against Garrett Crochet, who was on, I think, an 18-inning scoreless streak dating back to last season, and you score 5 runs off him, I think you've moved beyond a fluke. So what are some things that you're seeing now that tell you, hey, this actually might be a bit different of a season than what we were expecting?
Not to be downer, I'm not going to come off my preseason prediction because I still think there are some flaws with this team that have to get addressed either through improved performance or different players. Having said all that, what they've done over the last 5 games, or really since the first 2.5 games, it's almost like a switch has flipped. I was at the first game, I watched the second game, was at a bar for the first half of the third game, and this was a team that looked an awful lot like the 24 and 25 Astros. They were impatient, they were swinging at bad pitches. They didn't seem to have an approach at the plate. Starting pitching was disappointing. All of that, was what was reflected in the online presence of the Astros fan base. It felt like more of the same. And then something happened. That something very well be that the Angels don't know how to play defense, because I think there were like 4 errors involved in that 11 uncontested runs in that second half of that third game. But since then, the Astros are walking. They're taking pitches. They are not swinging wildly outside the zone, although I did find it really humorous about they were on the broadcast yesterday. Callis and Blum were praising Altuve because he's really focused on swinging out of the zone, and the very next pitch he swings wildly at a slider. I mean, you couldn't have – it's almost like he heard them and said, yeah, I'll watch this. But they are scoring runs, and the offense is doing what the offense we've been waiting for them to do for 3 years, really since the 23 season. And they're hitting at home. And that includes Christian Walker, who I don't know that we all realize this, but his worst ballpark in his career, batting average wise, was Houston prior to signing with us. That feels like something Dana Brown should have known.
I'm about to say, that seems so bizarre, considering you traded for Paredes, because he profiles perfectly for Dyken Park. So it's not like they don't look at that stuff.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe they thought he was going to overcome it, but Christian Walker is locked in and hitting. And
to your point, though, I mean, you have been a Christian Walker, not defender, but not a hater. And to your point, he's actually picking up where he left off from last season, because he finished the last season really strong.
Yeah. Somebody on Blue Sky yesterday posted that if he had, played a quarter of the season last year the way he's opened this season, we would have won the division. And I was like, well, he did. Last 90 games, which by any measure is at least a quarter of an MLB season. But I digress. The big key to me, beyond Altuve turning some things around, beyond Correa starting to get hits with men on base, beyond Paredes kind of continuing where he left off, beyond Walker's resurgence, is, of course, Yordan Alvarez. Yordan Alvarez is absolutely locked in. He started the season locked in. He should have one more home run, but the Astros are ridiculous about the roof rules, which I will never understand. Even when it's 75 degrees outside, they won't open the damn thing. I don't know why we have a roof, frankly.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's like, it should just be open until June. It is not get miserable until June. And being in the elements, like, we're not a soft city. We don't need it to be perfectly climate control. And frankly, Andy, sometimes the way the AC works in that place, it's warmer in the ballpark than it is outside. So
I will tell you this: if the Astros put a winning product on the field, people will come to the stadium no matter how warm it is. And I can base that on the fact that your college football team and my college football team fill 100,000 seat stadiums in September in
There's
Texas.
no worse time in Texas than September.
And it is mind-numbingly hot and humid with no wind and no hope for relief and just sun killing you. You can feel the cancer growing on your skin
Totally.
in one of those games. The fact that the Astros won't open a roof when it's 81 degrees outside.
Let me back up. And to your point, during that time of year, most of those games are played at 2:30 in the afternoon in a football
if you're
game.
lucky, if you
you're
get
in
one of
attendance
the
at 5 o'clock.
If you schedule a Michigan, you're going to get a good slot. But most of us schedule wrong way state for those first couple of games. You're playing at 11 o'clock in the morning.
And that's a 5-hour enterprise. That's not this 2.5-hour baseball game. Yeah.
So again, the Astros, I really wish they would rethink that. And we're off the topic.
We're tilting at windmills.
Very impressive. And they wake up this morning and find themselves in first place. And I don't know that many of us thought they were going to see first place this season.
Ever.
So, good for them. And I can tell that we're doing some things right because Rangers fans on Twitter are already trying to excuse. Well, they played bad teams so far. I don't think anybody thinks Boston is going to be a bad team this year.
Well, and I don't know how you know who is and who isn't a bad team in March. I mean, frankly, we haven't even really played April games yet. What I will say is a couple of things. One, they performed in Dyken Park offensively where they haven't really performed very well in the last couple of years. That's something. To me, the biggest stat that I saw is that I forgot how many he has, but Altuve already has as many walks now as he had in the first 3 months of last year.
Yeah, it took him something like 96 days to get to 12 walks last year.
Yeah.
I'm conflating those numbers, but it's something along those lines.
The point is, it does seem to be, and then I looked at, and then I saw a tweet with numbers with Mauricio Dubon and Jose Sanchez, and maybe it was the hitting coaches. There's clearly an approach difference that has been drilled into these guys. Last night, even though they didn't score, the Astros loaded the bases after 2 quick outs. Cam Smith, I think, had a 14 pitch at bat. There was an 11 pitch at bat after that. There was a 9 pitch at bat because they walked the bases loaded. And it was like, if you see pitches, good things happen. And I think with the dilution of pitching talent throughout the league because of just injury and because of the pure number of teams, a patient team is going to be a team that wins.
Yeah. And I think you can witness that by the number of times that Carlos Correa has come up already this year as your cleanup hitter in most games with the bases loaded. And I think he'd be the first one to tell you that he hasn't performed in those situations yet the way he wants to.
Yeah.
But yesterday he did. Yesterday, that was a 2-run bomb or 3-run bomb.
That felt angry for hit. How dare you hit Jordan? I'm going to now take it out on the space.
Absolutely. Which I'm sorry, Alex Cora. That was chicken shit. I realize that Jordan owns the Red Sox, and literally he does. He's bats like 570 against them. But that was the most intentional, unintentional hit by pitch that I've seen in a while.
Oh, 96 in the upper arm. Yeah, that was on purpose. But why are we surprised that Alex Cora is anything other than a piece of shit? Like, he got less punishment for the sign stealing scandal than AJ Hinch did, and yet we all know the story is that he is the one who set it up along with Carlos Beltran. Like, but he's a scumbag. I've never liked that dude, and every day he reminds me why.
Yeah, and nothing that happened this series would change my opinion on that. The fact that he still refuses to take any ownership of it is also just a little bit irritating. But I guess he actually received some punishment. He had to not work for almost a whole year.
Yeah,
he was still being paid that entire time, by the way. Because that's
I was laughing with friend of the show though. I screen grabbed her the standings, and I was like, I'm getting 2022 vibes with the Astros on top and the Yankees on top because it's been kind of a rough, bumpy road for.
How is Emily?
Oh, she's doing good. She's excited about her Yankees, and people are all over Aaron Judge, and she wants them to stop because he'll hit. Mm-hmm. Because it's not October. He's just not hitting now, but that's the thing.
When it comes to that sort of conversation, I think Altuve's prime Altuve at least was the same way. You hate him so much, but I don't know a team that would not figure out a way to fit him on the roster.
Oh, sorry, Cam Smith. You're now the fifth outfielder or fourth outfielder.
Or I don't know. You live in Sugarland now. I don't know how that works.
Hey, there's a good pizza place in Sugarland, Cam. Have you checked it out? I was very impressed with I like to find the little things, and I really thought the exchange with Jeremy Pena, Chandler Rome, and Cam Smith after Cam hit his first Oppo home run, and Chandler was asking him about it, and Jeremy Pena crashed the press conference. Did you see this? And said he goes, Jeremy Pena steps aside, goes, "That's enough, Chandler," and he starts asking Cam Smith questions, which Rome, for his credit, took it all in stride and had a good sense of humor about it. But it felt like I think when you see the dugout having a good time, I think those types of things are contagious. And it just didn't look like it was a team that was having a lot of fun the last 2 years.
Oh, no,
and maybe that's part of it.
The Astros did not have a fun clubhouse last year. And I think I hate to put that on one or two guys' shoulders, because I think ultimately the clubhouse culture is one of the few jobs the managers in 2026 actually have, but the players own a lot of that too. Mm-hmm. And the fact that there's a couple of guys, one in particular comes to mind, that isn't in that locker room anymore, and things appear to be more positive, is pretty telling to me.
Yeah.
And it's not all that individual's problem. It's not all his fault. But he's also the only pitcher who, decided to cross up his catcher and punish him for, him giving up a home run. So I think there are pieces like lighter. That. It feels lighter. It feels happier. It feels like a team that does not have the burden of baseball on their shoulders. And last year, that felt like a team that was burdened all year long, even when they were doing well up to July 4th, because this was a very competitive team up to July 4th. But even to that point, you did not see the joy, the fun, the kidding around as much as you're seeing even in this first 7 games. And that's chemistry. I know we're in this world of 2 true outcomes and analytics up the ass, but chemistry in the clubhouse goes just as much if you have the talent. And it's the differentiator to me between a really good Yankees team in 2017 and a really good Astros team in 2017 is not trash cans. It was clubhouse chemistry.
Sure. There was a vibe in Blummer and Callis were teasing Julia that they finally settled on the post-win playlist. And I think for a team like the Astros and what we remember, like Club Astros and all that stuff matters. And it's going to make, because you're exactly right. People forget that in 2025, there was a stretch where they played the division leaders for the West, the East, and the Central in the National League. And I think won 6 of 8. Like, they were dominating. Injuries took their toll. I want to touch on Jordan real quick one more time. And then I want to touch on Hunter Brown and Mike Burrows before we talk a little bit of other stuff. But Jordan's not only he locked in, his home runs look effortless. I mean, they just look. And one of the things I saw on MLB Network is that he takes the approach of a hitting like Tony Gwynn does, where Jordan feels like he's trying to hit for average. He just hits them out of the ballpark because he's really strong. He feels otherworldly right now.
Yeah, and I think effortless is the best way to put it, because the balls that he are hitting are traveling far and fast. He also hits balls so high that he's messing up stat track, because they're not measuring. There's no way that thing that hit the roof on opening day was only going to go 349 feet.
I know.
If that roof had not been in the way, it would have left the ballpark.
That was 500 feet easy.
That was breaking windows in that apartment complex on the other side of Crawford. That's how far that went, and that's how far he's hitting things. And I think he has 3 home runs right now. 2 have been upper deck shots, and not like doubt. And there were no doubt about where they were going to end up. Even the balls that he's not hitting out of the park, he's tattooing the walls on doubles, and he's also willing to just push a single through the infield when that's what the situation needs, because he's in that command. And we've seen him get on these streaks before where he has that level of bat control and game awareness, and it's all in the same place right now. And I don't think there's a better term for it than what Michael Jordan used to call being in the zone. It's just, the goal looks huge and the ball's really small. I assume that the baseball looks huge to him right now.
Yeah. What are your concerns with Mike Burrows? Because it felt like Vasquez. You texted this to me where it felt like Vasquez kind of took over the game somewhere midway through the game, and all of a sudden Burrows got pretty unhittable. I mean, his slider looked filthy, his curveball was falling off the table. I am like you, still think that there's a lot of upside for him, despite maybe not having the numbers you'd want after 2 starts, and certainly having a rough debut with the Astros.
Mike Burrows, I think Astros fans need to realize, and I don't know that I realized it when we traded for him, but he's a guy that is in his career, a young pitcher. He's 26 years old, which doesn't necessarily make him young for baseball, but he is a young in his career. He's played parts of 3 seasons. Last year was his full season in the major leagues. And I think that Callis said it yesterday. His career high in pitches was whatever he threw the Friday night game last week. So it's like 84 pitches, and he got to that again yesterday, and that's when he was about done. So he is still young in his career. He's got incredible spin. He's got incredible stuff. It's a matter of knowing when to use it, and that's. I'm not going to disparage another. Well, I am going to disparage another. I don't trust that outside of Paul Skeens, who I don't think is listening to the Pirates pitching coaches, that the Pirates develop pitchers at all. So I don't know what kind of coaching he got. So for him to get to the major leagues just on talent and kind of guessing through things is kind of the situation I get. His role this year, maybe a 2 slot, is overshooting a little bit at this point in his career, but he's got the stuff to be that guy. Where his improvement is going to come is trusting whoever his catcher is. And I like the idea that Christian Vasquez is his catcher, because he looked night and day different with Vasquez than he did with Yainer on that first outing. Trusting the coaching he's getting, trusting how they're telling him to use his pitches. The real telling thing for me is that you got through, and I realize you changed things up a couple of, second, third time through an order, but he started off the game throwing almost nothing but 4-seam fastballs. Gave up a couple of runs. And then in the 3rd inning, that mix switched completely, where he threw, I think, 10 4-seam fastballs the rest of the game. Was much better with the curve, was getting people out with the curve, lefties and righties, and mixing in his sinker and his change a lot more often than just trying to overpower guys. And I think that's where you saw Vasquez's leadership, is the veteran piece of having that veteran catcher there to be able to say, look, they're hitting your fastball. Let's stop throwing the fastball for a while. Yeah. Let's pick our spots with it. And I think that's one of the things the Astros pitching lab does really well, is get into these guys' head about pitch usage in situations. And that's something Burrows is going to have to learn. Spring training is for a lot of guys about refining. For a guy like Burrows, it's about building up and just proving that you belong there. And I'm sure there's pressure on him too, because he's a guy that was traded. We gave up some pieces for, so he probably feels he has something to prove.
Sure.
But it's going to be a little bit of a process with him. I'm not selling on Mike Burrows at all. He's actually one of my least concerns, because he's at least giving us innings. Even in that bad outing on last Friday night, he gave us 6 2/3 innings, which this rotation right now is desperately going to need, because I don't know that you count on Lance. I love Lance McCullers, great outing. We talked about it last time. I don't know that you count on him to be that guy, every guy out. Christian Javier is still a little bit of an unknown as to how long it's going to take him to get back to. I don't think he's completely healthy. I think he's still close enough to that surgery and the recovery that there's still a lot of runway for improvement. MI is still got a lot of adjustments to make. So outside of Hunter Brown and Tuesdays, what day is this? Thursday. Tuesday's outing by Hunter Brown was a lot more of what we expect from Hunter Brown as compared to opening day. So Burrows is going to be in the rotation all season long, provided he stays healthy. And I think he's going to get better along the way, because he's going to get things out of the Houston organization and out of having Christian Vasquez in that clubhouse than he was getting in the Pirates organization.
Give me a reason why the catching situation shouldn't just be Vasquez and Salazar platooning, with Vasquez probably starting 60% of the games. And I know people watching this will tell me that Salazar can't hit. Well, neither can Yanier, but at least they both can at least Salazar can handle the pitching staff.
Well, the answer is going to be Yiner can luck himself into 25 home runs just by swinging. He will run into 25 home runs because he has that kind of natural power. But over the time he has been with the Astros, and I assume this is part of the reason why the Indians gave up on him and traded him when they did, was he has demonstrated no ability to understand what the strike zone is. And there's been plenty of catchers who can't hit, but I think of a Brad Ausmus. Brad Ausmus wasn't swinging wildly at shit that it wasn't even within his arm's length to get to. Yiner just has no clue as to where a pitch is going ever. You're muted. No, you're actually have your mute button on this.
Yeah, no, we had announcements going. He's just swinging. Like he's swinging like I would swing.
Yeah, and
sometimes his eyes aren't closed.
And he has enough natural ability that when he makes contact, when that happens, there are going to be some balls that go out of the yard, and the Astros are still trading on hope that those are going to come more often than not. The catcher's role has been diminished a little bit with ABS being introduced, but not enough to excuse the fact that Yainer Diaz has not progressed as a catcher from a defensive player, and he's not a good enough hitter to be a major league regular. And yet we keep rolling him out there because
anybody out either.
The Astros don't feel they have enough options. I am a very big believer in up the middle defense. So if you told me that we could go get a left-handed out, the mythical left-handed bat that Dana Brown's been looking for 3 years for Yiner, or we could get another bullpen piece for Yiner at this point, I would be perfectly happy with Vasquez and Salazar getting us through the All-Star break and seeing if a change needs to be made.
And that change might also be Janik.
Yeah, and giving Janik time to continue to develop. I think he started at Corpus this year,
which is good, which is not a bad thing. People that are watching think, oh, that means it's a demotion. That's not how that works.
No, but I also don't think he's going to stay at Corpus long. I think they'll move him back up the ladder. Him being in Corpus is more about working with pitchers that the Astros think are going to be major leaguers versus what usually ends up in AAA.
Right. Speaking of, and I want to talk a little bit about Trump's speech last night, but before we get there, you and I have been talking a lot about AJ Blueball. Espada seems to signal something last night with Blueball only coming in now for one inning. That signals to me his place as back of the bullpen guy. When you factor in Hader being back, and it looked like Abreu, after giving up the home run, kind of was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm good at this. If you look at a back end of a bullpen with AJ Blue Balls, with Abreu, with Hader, and with King, that's a pretty good back end of your bullpen that you can throw 5 nights a week. I felt like with Blue Balls only throwing one inning last night, that was the signal that that's the direction.
The Astros have been searching for a 7th inning guy since Ryan Presley was traded to the Cubs last year. And Blue Ball, in my mind, is that next guy in line. And honestly, because we really don't know when Hader's coming back, I know the Astros keep telling us it's not serious, but they also keep moving the timeline back. So now we're expecting to see him sometime in May at the majors. He's not going to face hitters for another 2 weeks. I guess he's in Florida at extended rehab or extended spring training. So we're riding with Abreu as closer, but as we saw Sunday, if Abreu doesn't have it, Espada's got to be on top of that. And he put, Brian King in to secure a win against the Angels that was needed at that point, because this was a season that was looking like it might go off the rails with the first series of the year. And King came in and cleaned up Abreu's mess. Abreu's got all the skill in the world.
He is also, Andy, we have to remember, and we know we apply this to hitters usually, but he actually is kind of a slow starter. Like last year, he kind of got knocked around a little bit too until he didn't.
The best thing the Astros have done with this opening series has allowed me to move back into my normal mentality this time of year of none of this matters until Memorial Day. And I was guilty of not feeling that way during that series with the Angels. So I will, thank them for that. But yeah, Abreu's going to have time to be the Abreu's going to have time to be the closer. He's still growing into that role, by the way. This is his walk year, so he has a lot invested in pitching well, just like the Astros have a lot invested in him pitching well. But Blue Ball looks for all the world like a guy that can be your seventh inning guy and probably will be, could be your eighth inning guy sooner rather than later. And if something happened with Abreu and Hader, could be your closer. I mean, we haven't seen him in that role yet, but nothing about the way he carries himself on the mound, and this includes last year when he was getting knocked around a little bit, leads me to believe that he couldn't handle that role mentally. And I'm sure he wants to be a starter, and that's how he grew up in the organization. But there's a lot of guys who make a fairly good living being major league closers. So if that's where his path takes him, I'm all for it. But Blue Ball has been a revelation so far this year, and I like that he doesn't seem to have any fear, no matter who's up facing him in a game.
No, I
and he's also throwing 98, 99 miles
an hour. He's pumping 97, 98, and when you do that makes up for a lot of mistakes. But I like the idea that it seems like we've decided early that that's going to be the situation, and he's too good of a weapon to only let pitch twice a week, which is how they were using him. Like, it's comforting to be able to hand the keys to him in the seventh inning and say, go finish the game for us. But even still, I think some of the bullpen has performed better. I don't know. I mean, it feels good, and it feels like, there are no must-win series in April. There just aren't. But it does feel like no matter what, you've got a very winnable road trip ahead of you with an Oakland team that's struggling, and Colorado is Colorado, and then you do finish with 4 in Seattle, and that's obviously going to matter, but it's not going to be the end of the world one way or the other. I think if you split this road trip, I'll take a split on a road trip every day of the week, especially if you're going to win at home.
Yeah. The Astros the A's are not playing well so far. I fully expect that to change because right, wrong, or indifferent, Nick Kurt seems to think we stole something from him because he beats us like that a lot. So I expect he's going to get away from his slow start in Sacramento this weekend. But this is a road trip. The Astros should look winnable if it's a team that plays the way they played at Daikin on the road. That was not always something you could assume last year because they weren't a great road team for a good chunk of last year. They weren't a good team anywhere for a good chunk of last year. But road wins, I think they ended up being 41-40 on the road, which the 500's fine. This team has typically done better over the last 9 years on the road than 500. So you want to see them get off to a good start on the road. You want to see them win games on the road. But if they can go, is it a 10-game road trip? I'm not looking at it right now. Whatever it is, if they can go 4-4 or 5-5, whatever the number of games they're about to play on the road is, I think that's a win, especially knowing 4 of those are in Seattle, where it is going to be cold and damp, and the elements will not favor a team that sits, can't even open the roof because it's so hot outside.
Right. Well, again, I at least thank the Astros for me feeling much more positive about this season than I was. Speaking of things,
get ready to hear. It doesn't matter. It's not Memorial Day yet. Check in with me on May 31st.
Oh, I'm happy to hear it. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to lie to you. I did look at the standings yesterday just because, I think
it looks better. It looks better to be in first place than it does in second place.
Well, yeah. And for Seattle to be 2 games behind you, that matters. And I don't believe in Seattle the way baseball pundits want to. I think them being I think most of the publishing have them as the 3rd best team in baseball, and I don't see that at all. I think that's wish fulfillment more than it's anything. I think there's the Dodgers and then a huge gap, but I think the Yankees are better than Seattle, and that bore out, frankly. New York went to Seattle and took 2 of 3. Hey, so here's the thing about the war in Iran. There's no way Trump is really.
I'm sorry, that was the best transition I've ever heard on the show.
I know.
Here's the thing.
Trump really tripped himself into a situation, shockingly enough, more complicated than he understands, because, he's now just sort of talking about, I'll declare what victory means, and then we're going to walk away. One of the things, though, that he has done is the Strait of Hormuz is not just going to magically fix itself, just like COVID didn't just magically fix itself, but also he's putting our Arab allies in a really terrible spot if we do leave early. Like, we almost have to actually take the Karg Island and the Strait of Hormuz by force with boots on the ground for this to be a successful mission. And he's really angered the NATO allies and is shocked they didn't come to our rescue, but we didn't ask him to help. So there you go. But also, again, he's like, the UAE and Saudi Arabia are put in a very terrible position if we leave Iran with the ability to continue to pound them and say, well, we've accomplished what we want to accomplish and we're done.
Yeah. And I would encourage, it is a little bit of propaganda, certainly, but I would encourage people to read the letter that's whichever Iranian official, because we don't know who's in charge there right now, released to the American guy. I don't even think it's the same guy that Trump thinks he's negotiating with, which is a whole separate topic and is weird. But it kind of laid out a lot of the problems that the U.S. has put itself in, that the Trump administration has put the U.S. in with this. I really believe that Hegseth and whoever's advising him and Trump by proxy believed that it was going to be a lot like Venezuela, that we could walk in there very quickly, do the minimal amount of stuff, make a good video, and then leave, and everything would just fix itself. And that's, the difference, I think, there is that we didn't have Israel also doing things at the same time in Venezuela the way they are in Iran right now. There's an Israel problem as well, and I don't want all of our Jewish friends hating me because, again, I can separate the people from the government. Netanyahu's got some issues, just like Trump has some issues.
Well, Netanyahu's continuing all of this because he doesn't want to get impeached. And the way the Israeli constitution is set up.
Is that how we've got somebody who's doing something as a distraction to keep themselves out of jail? That's weird.
Well, he's doing it as a legal distraction.
I haven't heard that with our attorney general in Texas. I haven't heard that with our governor in Texas. I haven't heard that with our president in the United States.
It is part of the Israeli constitution that they can't even have elections when they're in a time of war. Which, by the way, Donald, we don't have that. We had elections during World War II, so don't come at me with you trying to cancel the midterm.
We had elections during the Spanish flu or during World War I. There's never been a time where elections have been postponed.
Yes.
Civil War, still elections.
Still electing.
But because it didn't happen quickly, and I know we've talked about this before, there doesn't seem to be a plan for what the objectives were other than making a good video and securing oil rights, kind of, sort of, but that's not even a thing anymore. It's just we keep getting this moving target about why we even went there, and it keeps falling back to this, well, we've been at war with them or under threat from Iran for 47 years. And there's got to be some sane washing that's happening for people to just buy that without questioning any of it, because as I recall, all Iran does absolutely, the Ayatollahs absolutely have created and fostered an environment and financed terrorist groups where terrorist groups can flourish and headquarter. There have been no direct government to government attacks, military to military attacks on the United States from Iran. There have been very few, and I'm struggling to remember in 47 years, attacks outside of the hostages in the
well, that's actually incorrect, and I'll correct the record on that for you. We can do direct attack. We can draw direct lines from attacks on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan, in Iraq, to Iranian-sponsored terrorism. Like, but friends of mine are killed because Iran exists. That's a fact.
And I'm not arguing that, but government to government.
No, you're right. That's not how Iran operates. Like, they don't operate that way. They operate through
that letter. The letter from the Iranian leader, whoever that was, there is a certain amount of propaganda, so you have to read it through that lens. but it felt a lot more forthcoming and honest about the situation than anything we're getting out of our government.
Isn't it sad that we have? Isn't it sad that we're at a place where you feel like it's easier to believe what Iran is saying than our own government? I mean, you even have Ann Coulter now saying that Fox News is basically the fake media and that Trump is a liar. I mean, this is how
and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Well, and it's like it should tell you everything you need to know. I mean, 30 members of Trump's cabinet or Trump's administration are from Fox News, the organization that admitted they lied about the Dominion voting machines and had to pay like $700 billion.
780
billion or million?
No, 780 million.
Million?
That's still a lot for a news organization.
Just millions. It's fine.
It's still a lot for a news organization to have to pay for lying.
Yeah.
And, if for those of you that watch Fox News a lot and didn't hear this, part of their defense was no sane person would believe what we're saying is actually real.
Yes.
That was an actual defense from the Fox lawyers.
Yeah. And some of those people that were saying it, and I'll defend Fox News for a second because their reporters are good reporters and they actually do a good job of covering the news on their website and they're printed. It's their talking head infotainment people that are the salute. And honestly, you find the same issue with MSNBC and the same issue with CNN.
Yep.
All of them, when news became entertainment, it became a problem. But
we could have a whole show about my misgivings about the 24-hour news cycle. Because
people want to blame social media for where we are. It started a lot earlier than social media.
You can thank Ted Turner for a lot of the situation.
Absolutely. But it just sucks for me as an American who still is idealistic about our country in so many ways to feel like I don't believe Trump when he says we're negotiating. I believe the Iranians when they say we're not.
I'll say this. I actually believe Donald Trump is negotiating with someone.
With somebody? Okay.
But I also know famously it's fairly easy if you're in the press corps to get his phone number. So I assume it's fairly easy for anybody to get his phone number if they put a modicum of effort into it. So who's to say who he's talking to? Because evidently he just answers the phone if you call him. Yes, I represent Iran. I'm going to negotiate on behalf of Texas. I will be Texas spokesman. Just give me his phone number. I talk to conservative idiots on a daily basis. I can absolutely have conversations in their language if I need to.
I still contend there could be good things to come out of this war, but it feels in some senses like what I know of the Vietnam War in the sense that the goals keep moving, and I don't think we'll be in a quagmire. I think Trump will pull out, which might end up being actually a more dangerous situation.
I feel if we can somehow extricate ourselves from the situation, but also give a situation where our allies in the Middle East somehow are protected, that's the only real solution at this point. But I don't see a way around taking Kharg Island right now, around doing a ground invasion. And that's unfortunate because it's unnecessary. It didn't have to go down this way. But again, the lack of a cohesive plan, the lack of cohesive objectives have led to what's going to be the loss of American lives. And
in securing Kharg Island and securing the Strait should have been like the thing you did on day 3. And I did hear one military analyst talk about, and I actually buy this from having been involved in my last duty assignment was the Division Artillery NCO, which meant targeting was like my thing. And I will tell you, we never ever did an exercise that wasn't set up by whoever was testing us to go well. And so I had heard the argument that part of what might be happening with some of this stuff is that the mission just went so smoothly that we're almost ahead of schedule and not really prepared for what to do next. And I do think there's at least validity in some of that, but I just can't escape the fact that it feels like they didn't think the Strait of Hormuz was ever going to be a problem. And I don't understand how you don't think it wouldn't have been the first thing they did.
It's hard for me to imagine that jives with Mr. Maximum Lethality running the show. And maybe it is. Maybe there are cooler, smarter heads around him that are circumventing or flat out ignoring some of the things he's saying publicly. But I also know that they have loaded the Department of Defense with sympathizers, which the whole thing just feels gross. And
it feels gross too, because
it feels gross from the standpoint of, I know the end result of this, unless some adult presents themselves in the room, is going to be a lot of dead soldiers. And it didn't have to be that way. And so that's my fear. And that I don't know that there's a positive outcome that gets from that point, because if ultimate loss is American lives, and I know these guys sign up for it, they volunteer for it.
Doesn't mean you throw them away in vain or with a bad plan. That's the thing, is just,
they're not expendable for the sake of a good show.
And I would feel so much better about it's the wrong word. I wouldn't feel so icky about it if I felt like, like W. What did W end up doing after his, like, W has worked tirelessly to help disabled vets have a better life afterward. Like, if I felt like Trump cared, if I felt like Trump actually valued the sacrifice, it would feel different. But we know how he feels about it. He's told us, and he's going to send these guys. He's going to send these guys in an ill plan. We've been announcing we're going to take Carg Island for weeks, which means they've done nothing but fortify Carg Island. Seriously, we should have bombed for 2 days and then dropped the 82nd in on the third day before they knew what was coming. The 82nd's designed to be able to do that. That's kind of their whole point. I don't know, man. It could get real ugly, or we could leave and leave a vacuum. In either way, those are bad end results.
Yeah. And for those of you, and this is my non-history person history lesson. For those of you who don't understand why leaving a vacuum would be bad, I would present to you 9/11, because that is a result of a vacuum in Afghanistan, and us stopping supporting individuals against Russia at a certain point, and them feeling like they were left out to dry, and causing generations of radicalized individuals. There is a issue with leaving a vacuum and not leaving some sort of individual allies, whatever you want to call it, in power or in a place where they can take power. We may be seeing it with what happened with Afghanistan 4 years ago.
And that was a Biden thing. Like we're not over here like just shitting on it because it's Trump.
And one president created that plan, another president executed that plan without any editing of it at all, which was bizarre to me. So they both own some of this, and the Middle East in general is unstable anyway. And so when you keep introducing variables into an unstable mix, it's just going to get bad. It never just works out good. A lot good can happen.
A lot good happen. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our episode today. We got a little bit, I don't know. I think it's good. I think people need to hear reason. It can only good happen. I think people need to hear, reasonable takes on this stuff. And I think you and I don't know about you, but I think that now that you and I have been talking a lot more about politics,
you realize that I'm a lefty pinko communist?
No, I don't. I think you and I probably are. You're probably more left than me, but I'm also a lot more center than most.
I'm so left, I might be right again.
Like my brother, the crazy one, not the one I love. Let me do a shout out to my brother Tim, who
nice dog, Tim.
Tim. Let's do a shout out to Albus, Dumbledore Jedgets. Silver Lab, man, beautiful.
You should throw a picture up of him in post.
I will. I will do that. We'll throw
because it's gonna just make you want a Silver Lab.
It's gonna make you. We are already doing some unofficial shopping. The other thing I would like to do is do a shout out to my middle brother, who I can't stand, who suggested that my mother go to Mexico for medical treatment. So my brother, who's anti-immigrant, wants my mom to go to some other country to let their people pay for her medical stuff. I want you to let that sink in. That's the hypocrisy of MAGA in a nutshell right there. All right, this has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation. I'm Jim. That's Andy.
Happy Easter, folks.
Happy Easter. Happy Passover for the. Do they say happy Passover? I think it's a happy holiday, right?
They say something that I will not dare try to pronounce in public because I will not get the Yiddish correct or the Hebrew right. But yes, I think happy Passover.
Because many of our Jewish friends' holidays are not happy ones. They've had a rough go of it, just to say the least.
This one involves like lamb's blood and firstborns actually surviving. So I think it's happy.
I think it's happy. We're going to effort that information. All right, everybody. We are out. See ya.